So there is some role at that top that sometimes it is about being able to give them the freedom to step away and know that the business is going to continue. It's going to grow and it's going to scale because we have put the right people in the right seats. We've created processes that are repeatable, and we are enabling it with those technologies. So the business operating engine is well tuned.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited. We have a special guest today. We have Lisa Levy joining us. And Lisa is a two-time author. She wrote two amazing books. One is Future Proofing Cube. She also wrote another book called Lady Diversity Power. And I'm so excited because today we're going to have an amazing conversation about small businesses and things that go wrong in small businesses. And, I like Lisa because, first of all, Lisa loves a good puzzle. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you can see her left brain versus her right brain photograph there. But one of the things that she saw was, as businesses were developing, and technology was evolving, one of the things that she noticed was just teams failing to communicate with one another. And Lisa, what she does, she helps align people, processes, and technology to really align and create that strategic advantage. And, some of her success has come from leveraging things such as project management, process performance management, internal controls, and organizational change management to really build teams and skills and capabilities that really drive those strategic results that we really want. And like I said, today, we're going to talk about things that we're seeing right now that's happening in small business that are really cutting their ankles, that opportunities they're not taking, opportunities that really can allow them to shine. So please join me in welcoming Lisa Levy to the platform. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing today?
Suzanne, it's so great to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Well, we're definitely very, very excited about it. And I love, for those of you guys who are listening on the audio side, I love this brain that you have in the background. You got this multicolored brain, and then there's another side. It looks like an accountant brain. Tell me a little bit about this.
So the brain is a visual that I keep around, right? It's our left brain, which is our systems and our process thinking, versus our right brain, which is our creativity, our empathy. And most people are one side dominant over the other. And in the work that I do with business owners and teams, it's really important to remember the side of our brain that is non-dominant. Because as we learn to use those skills, that's where we get sort of that X factor growth in our thinking and our capabilities. So yeah, it's an eye-catching display behind me, but it's also a very important tool in the work that I do.
I love it. I love it. I know you're an author, two amazing books. Tell us about these books.
Absolutely. So Future Proofing Cubed is a book that I wrote and published in May of 2020. It was supposed to come out a little bit earlier than that, but there are reasons why things got a little bit delayed. It is a look at the business practice that we use at Lcubed. It's a look at our framework, adaptive transformation, and how we use those 4 best practices that you just mentioned: project management, process performance management, internal controls, organizational change. How those best practices, which are commonplace in big global corporations, how we can pare them down and use them in something I call adaptive transformation in our smaller businesses, so that we can leverage all of that knowledge without having to make the millions and millions of dollars investment into building those disciplines. So I think we can talk some more about that throughout the course of the conversation today. The other book, Lady Diversity Power, came out about a year ago, and it's a collection, an anthology of stories from women across the world, around the world, who are leading in different ways, including a princess, including some individuals who have built large companies, solopreneurs, individuals, females who are just doing things because diversity is the key to our future success. And as women, right, we are more than 50% of the population globally. We need our seat at the table. And from my perspective, that's not in large corporations, that's in small businesses. That's changing in that sort of grassroots mindset that we'll do it from the bottom up, because parity in 140 years in the corporate Fortune 500 sector is just asinine.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that, there's a lot of focus on expectations of Fortune 500 to meet diversity goals, but, small business owners, it starts here too, right? There's a part that we own in that change.
Well, in the small business, we can do that change faster. We can do it more effectively. And the data shows that in this case, right, we're talking about women owners, women founders who are underfunded in the venture capital space, in the private equity space. They get 2 to 3% of the money that's available, and their businesses are more effective, they're more profitable, they're more scalable. So if we can groundswell and make the change in that space, I think it's a much bigger impact to the global economy than what happens at the Fortune 500.
Oh yeah. And, as a women-owned business, it doesn't just stop here, right? We do good in the world too, right? We pass that wealth down, and help other, businesses that are women-owned and also our communities too, which is really great about supporting women-owned businesses. So let's talk today about, I know you're in the field and you're doing amazing things here with project management, Lean Six Sigma, Black Belt, top 50 female leaders in Phoenix by women we admire in 2022, top 10 women leaders by industry era in 2021. And your company was top change management consulting company with HR Tech Outlook in 2020. So you're obviously doing a lot to really be seen and making a lot of changes out there. Let's talk about some of the things that you're seeing in business right now in the business environment where we're just missing out on some of those opportunities.
I think that there are a series of things that we're dealing with right now. And I kind of talk about it, what we went through during the pandemic, right? We stretched a rubber band. We got outside of our comfort zone. We did some things, and that's sort of contracting again. The work at home phenomenon, or the value of it versus the damage it does. Is it good? Is it bad? It's neither, right? It is a mode of doing business. But what is real is that how we show up to work has changed and is changing. And as leaders, we need to be aware of what that means to our business. On that thread of, that work from home versus hybrid versus everybody back in a desk in an office from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever that schedule might be. I've seen some really interesting things happen, right? You watch the news, you listen to the big CEOs of the large banking and financial platforms, the crazy billionaires who run multiple businesses. They're middle-aged white men who are used to doing things a certain way, and they want everybody back in the office, and they want command and control. Command and control leadership has never been effective. It works through fear, it works through intimidation, and with our emerging employee base, our millennials who are now directors and vice presidents, who are business owners in their own right, with Gen Z coming into the workplace, starting their careers during the pandemic, they have a very different perspective on what work-life balance actually means. And they're going to force a change. And I believe, right, especially in our small and medium businesses, that we have the opportunity to pay attention to what that means. As I've been talking with clients and former clients, and mine are, businesses that are at 10 to $15 million in revenue, up to 100 million, depending on what's going on. And some former clients much larger than that, as I've changed what my business practice is. And listening to these leaders understand that going back to the office is not the right answer for every role. And that's the key, right? Every role. In my past, I've done a tremendous amount of work with financial institutions. Let's own the fact that a bank teller has to go to the office. You cannot, sit in your living room and transact financial transactions with the public in your jammies in the comfort of home. You actually have to be at work, right? Our essential employees, our frontline workers, there are lots of roles that will always be at the place of business. But there are tremendous numbers of roles that aren't. And that's, the back office functions, and it can be IT, it can be sales, it can be marketing. There are lots of things that can work in a remote fashion and a hybrid fashion. There's a time and a place when it is imperative that people come together and do work as a team collectively, eyeball to eyeball in the same space. All of those things can be planned. It doesn't have to be enforced with a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 butts and seats and a desk. And there are lots of companies that are starting to do some creative things. And we saw the creativity in the beginning of the pandemic, right? When we all went remote as quickly as we possibly could to stay safe. But in coming back, I saw an article recently, Smuckers, right? Smuckers Jams. They're based in Ohio, in a small town. And they do believe that the power of coming together and being present is important, but it's not necessarily day to day. So they've created something. I haven't heard anybody else doing it, so I'm going to talk about it because it's cool, called Core Weeks. So they look at a calendar year and say on these dates, on these 4 weeks out of the month or 4 weeks out of the year, whatever the number is that they came up with, we will be present in the office. I don't care where you live. What you do is entirely you. But for these weeks out of the year, you will be back in the office. If you have left the state, you will travel on your own dime to be here and be present. And so they're letting people be grown-ups and accountable for how and when they spend their time. These are brilliant things. There is no one right answer. Each business is going to figure out what working from home, being remote, being present should actually mean. And just because we have lots of people who have the ability to have a platform of the media saying it's time to come back to the office doesn't make it right and doesn't make it correct.
Right, definitely. First, you're definitely going to be missing out of a strong talent pool, especially when there's options out there, right? And being able to work with that and know which positions are the ones that can work remotely, and also individuals too, right? Because some individuals, Lisa, we got to be honest, some people can't work from home, that they need that I always think of the Lego movie, that micromanager. But some people can handle it, right? They can handle working on their own. They are that self-manager that they're able to do that. First of all, as a business is considering that transition that's happening where you've got people that are coming back to the office that should have been at the office, right, all along, versus those that can handle that autonomy, right? How do you really hone that in, right? How do you hone that in your organization and do that successfully? How do you create an organization where everyone that's there can be their best?
Absolutely. So that starts at the top, right? It is a tone at the top that understands and embraces what it takes to be a high-performing organization. And in that, we were talking about there are some of those people who probably should always have been in the office and require a little bit of oversight. And those people are definitely out there. But the question is, do they actually perform, and can you create the environment where they can be their high-performing best self? Or are they, and there are those people out there who may just be in the wrong role in the wrong organization, and it might be time for them to move on. Right. So there's a lots of different pieces and facets to understanding as a leader. Do we have the right people in the right seats doing the right work? And that is a critical kind of formula, because we need to, right, the target topic of this is profitability, right? We're here to talk about that. So let's dig in a little bit deeper to getting the right person in the right seat and what that means. When a business starts, and you have an individual founder, that visionary person, a little bit of a renegade, wild, wacky ideas that we're going to market with this product or this service, right? They will pull together around them a team, however, a couple of people, a few people, whatever that first wave is of those initial followers who are also a little bit crazy. They're willing to give everything that is absolutely necessary to get the job done. And that's awesome. And that's how a lot of businesses start, with an inertia, with this energy. And everybody throws in and everybody does whatever it takes, all hands on deck, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the garage of the house, whatever it is to get that idea going. That is absolutely, positively not scalable and sustainable over time. So, right, as that business grows and there's revenue and there's profit and there are things that we're starting to mature as an organization, those initial individuals may or may not be those same individuals who are going to take the company and that business to the next level. Because all hands on deck, no process, just get it done, whatever it takes, not that scalable model. So there's that point in maturity where you have to understand who's doing what and how they're doing it. Getting to that point in time where we're creating repeatable process is the first and most important step to becoming scalable. And I was really specific in that process must be repeatable. And in order for a process to be repeatable, it has to be documented. It has to be understood, and it has to be something that, Suzanne, when you come into your role, I can train you how to do it. And when Jeff comes into a role like yours, I train him how to do it the exact same way, so that when you're on vacation, he can cover your part of the process because he does it the exact same way. And when you win the lottery and you never come back, we don't miss a beat because we know that we can put another person in and train them to do that job. So that is really critical to getting to the point where a business can grow and understanding the right people and the right roles. Once we have people and then we have process, then we can enable with technology. We can put systems in place that do those repetitive tasks better and faster than a human being ever could. And we put those people doing things that require higher thinking, more creativity, solutioning that aren't rote. So people plus process times technology. That's my formula for growth and scale. And underlying all of that means that we're being effective and we're being efficient. And that means that we're going to build a profitable business because we aren't wasting time and we aren't wasting money.
I love that. It's people times process times technology. That's how you get the cube effect, right?
Yeah.
If I heard that right. And I love that because, it really is the combination of, the old way, the new way, and what's coming along the way, right, too. And I like the fact, Lisa, that you said it starts with the top, right? Because, we've all seen situations where, somebody has a great idea. Let's make SOPs, right? Let's make some standard operating procedures. But the problem is the person that they're delegating to either isn't the right person, meaning that, you look at their notes and it's like one line of how to do a process that should take an hour and there's different steps to it, or somebody that doesn't have the time, right? And they're not going to make the time or do that after hours to get those processes down. And it really starts with that person on top that's saying, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this with you. We're going to do it without you, but we're going to do this. And this is what it's going to look like because, you can't just say do this. You got to follow up. You got to make sure that's progressing and getting done. Those SOPs, that creating that process where you can put anybody in at any time, right? That's intentional. And it's saying that over and over again. I love that you talk about communication. It's that crucial communication, that those crucial discussions of I can't repeat that process looking at that, and being completely honest with that. Lisa, do you have any stories or thoughts on things that you've seen where it gets held up with implementing a process?
Absolutely. So a couple of years ago, I was working with a client and they had a terrible customer satisfaction issue. It was so bad, I'll put it in very blunt terms. They had the lowest customer satisfaction in their industry in the United States. You've got nowhere to go but up from there. But that's a really bad right place to be. But it says that obviously something was really, really, really broken. And we had the opportunity in this to pull together a group of their customers and start asking questions and understanding what their frustrations were and what their expectations, wants, and needs were, right? So we know what's not working, but we know now what working should look like. And it was really incredibly simple. We want this vendor to make a commitment and deliver to that commitment the way that they said. Put a date out there and deliver on time. That's all they wanted. Pretty fundamental, pretty foundational stuff. So we went back to the teams, and there were lots of them that were involved in fulfilling and delivering this service. And I said, okay, what does it look like? How long does it take to deliver the service? And one guy's like, he sighs and he holds up this picture, and it's the marketing picture, and it's pretty, right? It's a gorgeous little picture, and it says, in 16 weeks, we will deliver this. And here are the 4 key things that have to happen, and we'll be there. I said, okay, that seems pretty straightforward. And he rolls his eyes and he goes, it happens in 20, if not maybe 30 weeks. So they're missing it by they're basically doubling the time. And now I'm understanding why their customers are irate and disappointed. So, okay, let's unpack it. Let's look who does what, when, where, why, and how. And that meant we brought about 15 people into a conference room that represented the 15 different teams who do something. And I said, all right, how does it work? What's the process? Let's see it. And they all just sort of look around at each other and said, okay, who starts the process? And they're all still looking around at each other. And nobody's saying anything. I said, okay, you guys all have these big stacks of papers and rolls, right? Big printed rolls of paper. What do you have in front of you? And one guy with the biggest stack of paper and the biggest roll says, well, these are all of our processes. I said, awesome. Let's walk them from the beginning to the end. He goes, well, my team doesn't start it. Okay, who does it? So we went around for a very long time because I was really making the point that nobody knows how this process works. In spite of all of the paper, in spite of all of the drawings, nobody knows anything. So for those of us who work and play with process, I believe I can solve every problem with a whiteboard and dry erase markers, drawing boxes and arrows. Some sticky notes help along the way. So we started old school and everybody had a stack of sticky notes and started writing out the things that they did. And we slowly but surely started putting them up on the wall and understanding, learning what this process really looked like. We found redundancies. We found work that was done that went nowhere. We found reports that were generated because they were imperative, but if they weren't done, other systems stopped operating, but nobody actually used the report. It was placed out on the file share with just the right name. A blank Word document would make the rest of the system flow. It was insane. And I clearly understood that communication was the first thing that was missing because the left hand and the right hand had no idea what was going on. Each individual knew their role perfectly, but had no idea what it meant to the person that was supposed to do something next. Was there a person who was supposed to do something next? So we took a couple of months. This took some heavy lift and a lot of thinking and reconfiguring and learning. And we took what was on paper originally, that pretty picture, 16 weeks, and we dialed it back down to 4. So they said it would take 16. They delivered in 20 to 30, and now we were doing it in 4. What do you think that did to the customer satisfaction?
Oh, it went through the roof, right? You're actually delivering on time. Now the customer can meet their deliverables, right? Because they can rely on you. I'm surprised they stayed in business delivering 16 weeks later.
They have a unique business model that their customers are given to them. They do not have to acquire them, and there are no choices. So it's a very unique model, and it happens across our country, and there are a lot in different sectors, but right, they didn't have to think about their customers. But once they did, and this is critical, and I buried this into the end of the story, once they acknowledged that when they put their customer at the center of every decision that they make, their business suddenly became more effective, it became more efficient, and it became so much more profitable. 10x time, you might type more profitable, because they were no longer wasting time, people, money, resources. Once you strip away all that waste and focus on customer needs, everything changes.
I love it. I love it. And it's so important what you say too, because, I work with a lot of CEOs, and every single one, small business, getting larger, scaling, they tell me, I want to be in this role where I can be a CEO, where I'm not in the minutia, where I'm not doing the thing anymore that everybody else is doing, that to actually fulfill me, to get it done. I can make decisions that are strategic. And I'm like, what do you think that really means? Does that mean playing solitaire to you? Or what does that mean? Because I feel like some people, they get stuck on this glamorous, I want to be like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm like, no, you are a conductor of a machine. It is your job to make sure that your pieces talk to each other, that work is getting done, that reports are not just being created, but they're actually being, things are being ticked off on those reports, right? And if they're not, someone's following up. Your job is to conduct. And being a CEO does not necessarily mean easier work, right? And in fact, I actually think it gave me a headache many, many nights, right? Is what it does, because your brain is working on overload, making sure everyone is doing it's conducting, it's creating the environment where stuff gets done, where deliverables happen. And if it's not, removing heads, right? If it's not being done, or counseling heads to make sure it gets done too. And I think that that's a mistake that happens so much in businesses. I want to be that top person. And I don't know if they have a vision of solitaire or playing golf or what it is, but it's actually work, being a conductor.
It is actually work. But it should be very different work. And I agree, right? A CEO is a fantastic conductor. A capable CEO is a fantastic conductor that keeps everything going, but they are not a micromanager. They are not actually in the day-to-day operations. They are not making those decisions. Being strategic, being the visionary means that they are looking to the future, that they are planning what comes next in 6 months, 9 months, 3 years, 5 years. And when the orchestra misses a note, right, it may pop up to them and they may make some decisions, but they should not be day to day in the operations, because we've created that leadership team around them on purpose with intention to be self-reliant, to be empowered to make decisions, to be empowered to push the decisioning down into the organization where it's closer to the actual problem, so that the subject matter experts who truly know are making the informed decision. A CEO with the best of intentions will always make a decision. It's in their DNA. They can't help themselves. But if the decision gets pushed up that high, it's also going to be made with the perspective of being up that high. And it may be the wrong decision for all of the right reasons. And so that CEO to conduct effectively needs layers, needs the people underneath to be empowered to make decisions and not force them up to the top. That one, it'll slow things down. And two, bad decisions get made for good reasons. Let the CEO look to the future. That's truly their job.
Right. And also to appoint people that can make those decisions on the bottom
Yes.
down, right? Those people that are not letting the right hand not talk to the left hand, or allowing a situation to stay like that, making sure those meetings are happening to make sure those things are getting done is important with that. So Lisa, what else do you see with things going wrong where profits are being leaked out right now?
Well, and I think that we were just sort of talking about it, right? The CEO, the leader, the founder, the business owner, whatever that role is, that tone at the top, that individual who is way too involved in the day-to-day minutia. So oftentimes what I've seen, right, are subject matter experts, brilliant people who have the idea for the product, the service, they get it and they take it to market, and then the business starts to grow. And, consider it, the founder's dilemma, eureka, we're successful. Oh my, I have no idea how to run a business. And that's a really critical stage in the likelihood of that business surviving and growing. And I love to work with teams who are in that space, because that's that opportunity to position that owner, that founder. Are we using the title CEO, right? Have that person learn how to be in that role and get them out of the minutia, because what happens often is if they don't know how to run a business, they're overly involved in every decision, micromanaging, intentionally, unintentionally, keeping people from doing their work the right way because they're trying to protect their baby, the business. And we need to get them out of that. And we need to get people around them who are capable leaders, who know how to run a business, who understand what gross margin is if the founder doesn't necessarily understand things, right? What the financial implications and triggers and levers are, so that we keep them in their best role. And in that founder, business owner, CEO type role that is, again, future looking. But it also might be for that founder that freedom at the top means that they actually do step away from the business for 30, 60, or 90 days and leave it in the hands of this leadership team, because they are self-reliant. That founder may have been on a 5-year growth journey and be physically and emotionally exhausted and need to step away in order to come back stronger, in order to come back with a new product or service, or a serial entrepreneur start the next thing. So there is some role at that top that sometimes it is about being able to give them the freedom to step away and know that the business is going to continue. It's going to grow and it's going to scale, because we have put the right people in the right seats. We've created processes that are repeatable, and we are enabling it with those technologies. So the business operating engine is well tuned. And I think that's that fantasy that you're talking about that those CEOs have. And I don't know that it's about playing solitaire, but it's about having the freedom to know that they can make the decisions on how to invest their most precious commodity, their time. And so I think that is one of the places right now that small and medium business owners, founders, the CEOs of those growth companies, right? Time and making sure that they're using it wisely and for the right reasons for themselves and for their business. Helping them manage that is, I think, critical to their long-term success.
Yeah, definitely from that standpoint, because they're not going to be able to look at every product that goes out at that point. It really is about having that team that they can trust that can really lead from that standpoint. And then what else are you seeing where things go wrong?
I think that those are really the big things that are happening right now. Tuning that engine, that business engine, is really, I think, the long-term key to success, and understanding how the business runs so that it can grow. And so with that is that opportunity to be then continuously innovating. What is the next product? What is the next service? Having the opportunity for the entire company to ideate and contribute to those thoughts and those ideas. And that gives you the throughput of fresh ideas so that we can learn how to change, we can learn how to adapt. And when the market changes, we aren't paralyzed by it, because as an organization, we've learned how to take the next step, do the next thing. So finding that cultural commitment to innovation, I think, is critical for growth and scale, and building in the ideation, the taking those ideas, experimenting with them, doing little prototypes. And I'm not talking about the building of something type of prototype. I'm talking about the thought experiment, sitting with a group of people and teasing out, what does it take to take this product or service to market? What does it mean to our customers? Do they want it? Don't they want it? To have that constant opportunity to do the next thing. Because every business goes through growth cycles, and the sad thing right at the end of a growth cycle is a plateau, and then there's a decline. But if we have a constant flow of new ideas and we're experimenting to test and see which ones really resonate, as one growth cycle is reaching its peak and maybe starting to plateau, we're coming to market with the next thing. And when an external disruption, a change in market, a change in a pandemic, when these things happen, we have ideas, right? Things that we can do. And we know how to go out to our customers and understand, as something flip-flops on them, we can get their input on what they need so that we can fill that need for them. And so I think that that's the great opportunity that really strong visionary leaders have, is to bring in that culture of innovating, so that the whole business, everyone, is part of where we're going and solutioning how we're going to get there.
I love it. And so what are some ways that we can create that culture, specifically, like within your organization, or even looking outwards? What are some ways that are best practices to do that?
Sure. So I love right.
Maybe they're not best practices, right? Maybe they're not being done.
Maybe they're not best practices. So first and foremost, everything starts at the top. Right. So we have to live it. We have to say it and we have to live it. And part of the thing that requires, right, that means we have to embrace that spirit of experimentation. We want people to try new ideas. We accept that not all new ideas are going to work well. Some experiments fail. And that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. That is where we learn. And that's where we figure out what we shouldn't do in order to invest more in what we should do. Those experiments that are raving successes, right? We need to do more of those things. And we need to amplify and push and grow and do all of that. But we need to let people know that it is safe to try something that is uncomfortable. It is safe to try something that we don't know what's going to happen, because we're invested in the learning portion so that we can apply the lessons to our business. And that is the first and most important thing, right? Is creating that safety to experiment. And that safety then is to speak up and share an idea. Not every idea is going to be brilliant. Not every idea is going to generate millions of dollars in profit. But incrementally, lots of small ideas create momentum. And that creates the ability to continuously adapt, to continuously innovate, and that gives the business longevity. And so I think that's the most important thing. And then understanding what it is to have an innovation process and what that means, because it is a process, right? We ideate, we experiment, we learn lessons, we rinse and we repeat, and we apply those, lessons learned to everything that we do. And sometimes that innovation is internally focused, right? That's improving our processes. And sometimes it's the products and services that we take to market.
I love it. And I get it. If you guys are listening, you're business owners, you think about those checks that just went out the door on that failed attempt there. It can give you a knot in the stomach, and it's sometimes hard to stay silent when it happens. But you're right, Lisa, at the end of the day, that's how we venture and how we grow to be market leaders, right? And bring innovation is by experimenting. I know many years ago, I interned at Procter & Gamble in their research and development department, and there were budgets for research and development, right? And, and for your business, as you're implementing new technology or just, I call it play money, right? Where you're going to be experimenting, put aside a part of that budget for creating new things and make that part of your research and development.
And I love that you mentioned Procter and Gamble, right? Because their R&D budget is bigger than many of these businesses or small businesses that are, it's apples and oranges in comparison. And so let me just sort of that investment, that first investment in experimentation in a small and medium-sized business is time. First and foremost, it's time, right? Because we don't need to build prototypes for every idea. The idea of that thought experiment, I also call it that conference room prototype, is the time for a group of people to sit around together, to draw pictures on whiteboards, to play with what does it look like going to market, like role play it through and around the table. What is it going to take to design it? What is it going to take to build it? What does it take, right? None of this is investing hard dollars into a physical prototype. Right? That's a couple of steps further down the line. In a small to medium business in a given year, if you experiment with something to that level once or twice in the year, you'll be doing amazing things. But month by month, we should be doing the thought exercise of many of them. And so when we write the check and do an experiment that costs hard money, on a failed experiment, right? Those sunk costs, that can be minimized and mitigated by better conference room prototypes. So more of the thought exercise, less of the actual investing until you really think you're onto something, because we don't have the P&G budgets.
Definitely. And we've both worked with clients that are, 50 million plus, and even in $50 million companies, you can have groupthink. And having that, the guts to say no, that's, I don't know if you want to call an idea crazy, but, if it's giving everybody the ability to also be able to throw cons at that idea, right? In a way that's respectful, not billing. And I don't know if there's a way of doing that, Lisa, where it doesn't necessarily put down somebody, what are your suggestions with that so that everyone still feels encouraged and uplifted, even though we're downing that idea and tabling it for now?
Well, and so there are several different ways to go about that. And one of them is, right, to elicit input from lots of voices. And in doing that, bulk input is kind of anonymous, right? You can send it out to the whole team, like the whole company of 30 people. You can send it out to all of your customers, right? And have them polling, right? Yes, no. And so you're doing sort of the, we're going to keep going if we have an 80% interest rate, and if 80% of the respondents aren't interested, we're going to kind of leave that one behind. But it's a crucial conversation. Leaders should be able to give feedback that says, Suzanne, I really appreciate your time and your thought and the energy that you put into creating this idea. The plan, I understand what it is, but for us right now, the risk factors of this, and the other thing are greater than we're willing to accept. We're going to set it aside and we'll test against it again in the future. Because sometimes the crazy idea in iteration 3, 4, or 5 has morphed and it becomes the best idea we've ever seen. And so we don't want to just let it go away. We want it to be there to spur on the creativity and the ingenuity of others, even if it isn't something that we really ever think we're going to take to market. The bigger, the bolder, the more crazy, the more likely it is that we're going to find the thing that we can actually do if we are allowed to go to big, audacious, crazy. It's much more effective to then find the thing that's doable. If we're afraid to be big, bold, and audacious, we'll never get to the thing that's going to be a game changer for the business.
I love it. I love it. We got electric cars now. We might have flying cars coming soon. So you guys definitely think bold, think big, right? Because that's how things happen that we haven't imagined or seen yet. Lisa, I love this conversation. One of the things I love to ask our guests as we wrap up is, if you could leave our guests with one piece of advice, it can be business, it can be personal. What would that one idea be?
The one idea is always be curious. So question what's going on around you, want to understand the why behind the things that happen. And just stay curious.
I love it. I love it. Now, Lisa, in order to contact you, follow you, work with you, what's the best way for our listeners to find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Lisa L. Levy. My website, lisalevy.com, will take you to an exploration of the Self-Reliant Leadership Team program and how I work with groups doing some of the things we've talked about today. And on YouTube, you can find Lcubed Consulting as a channel at Lcubed Consulting, which is the name of the company. So there's also lcubedconsulting.com. And you can also check out disruptandinnovate.com, which is the homepage for my podcast, where we talk about how disruption and innovation change the world.
I love it. And for you guys that are driving, I am going to put Lisa's contact information in our show notes so that when you get to a safe place, you will be able to look that up and connect with her. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with your audience.